Hello, Asia, and hello, world. Just for transparency, we planned a different topic for this episode of the Election Observer podcast, but sometimes things just don't work out the way we intend them to. So we try to adapt, we pivot, we say our prayers, and hope for the best, as we say. This is the 18th episode of the Election Observer podcast, episode 8 of season 2, and the 22nd episode in ANFREL's podcasting history, including the limited podcast series, Ano Na. So we thought, as you have been with us for some time now, we'd reflect on what we've observed and learned so far, not just from the insights of our guests, but also from ANFREL's engagement with people and organizations in our various programs and activities. I'm your host, Sean Antiquera, and we are live via ANFREL's Facebook and LinkedIn pages, as well as via ANFREL's YouTube channel. The episodes of the Election Observer podcast, as you know, can also be streamed later on Spotify and Apple Podcast. If you've noticed, the social media poster for this week's episode, we only included silhouettes. So I hope people of my age hopefully got the Pokemon reference. It's like, what's that Who's that Pokemon? So, who are joining us this afternoon? We've invited my colleagues from the ANFREL Secretariat who took on the challenge without knowing what questions would be asked or what would be asked of them today. As we've mentioned, this particular episode is on reflections on democracy and elections in Asia. Let me add my colleagues who are in the stream to this feed. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Let me just fix my
Hello.
card. Yeah, there. Thank you for joining us in this episode. I think Afsana will also join us now. I'll add her when I see her in the back end. But I won't promise that the questions would not be cheesy. I've told Ayan and Tarindu earlier that the questions are a bit cheesy. But please do not hesitate to share your thoughts and your feelings. This is a safe space. This is an intervention. Yes. So to start, I didn't introduce you, so I will let you introduce yourselves by telling us your name, your designation, and answer this particular question. If you have a hashtag to describe your work with ANFREL, what would it be and why? I told you it would be cheesy, no? So who would like to go first? Maybe we'll do alphabetical. Ayan would be the first one.
I always lose when it comes to the alphabetical order. Um, Hi, so thank you very much for having me, John, in this podcast. My name is Ayan. I am the program officer for ANFREL's Bangladesh Elections and Democracy program. And if I am to choose a hashtag to describe my work, my experience with ANFREL so far, it would be um, hashtag exciting. Yes, very exciting. It has been a very exciting journey for me so far. So that would be the appropriate hashtag for me. Yeah.
Why excite? Why hashtag exciting?
So, despite some of the the technical aspects of the work that we're doing, every single work that I've done with ANFREL, starting from election observation to the research work, desk work, liaising, and logistical preparation, everything has been really exciting to me so far because um, before I started my journey with ANFREL, I wasn't very aware of election observation
Mhm.
or electoral rights in general. Not aware. Aware wouldn't be the appropriate word, but I didn't know the nitty gritty of it, the technicalities of it. But after joining ANFREL, after getting hands-on experience with these technicalities, with these laws, with everything that has to do with the electoral process, I can't help but say that it has been a very exciting journey for me.
That's good to know. The next one would be Tarindo.
Oh, T.
T, yes. Oh no, R. So it's Rana, no? Sorry, I got my alphabets wrong. RSTR. Rana.
Yes. Hi, John. Hi, Ayan. Hi, Tharindu. I am Manjesh Rana and I work with ANFREL as Senior Program Officer, mainly responsible for their international election observation missions. And I think the title itself is quite clear that I am the one who's responsible to deploy a team of observers. And this is something which is again teamwork. So, wherever we have elections in Asia and wherever the legal framework of that country or the election commission allows us to come and observe the elections, we do the election observation. And just to very give a very simple definition of election observation. So again, it's an independent organization that we have, ANFREL, and we observe the entire electoral process. That includes not just the voting day, but also the candidate registration, the party registration, election preparation, and even the post-election resolution. We observe or monitor the entire campaign environment, and we basically want to monitor these elections to see how free and fair these elections are, how credible the entire electoral process is. And we use various tools. Maybe we can talk about it later, and also about like the guiding principles and standards. But I'll stop here. And for the hashtag, I would say that since election observation is not one man job, it's not a one person job at all, and it includes the entire team, which includes the one which already worked with Anfril. And during the mission, we call them missions. They are on like different. They are given different roles. Some of them they also become electoral analysts, and some of them they also become the mission coordinators, taking care of the different aspects of the mission. And then we also hire lots of people from outside our organization because we have a big network. So I would say it's basically teamwork. So for me, it's always be hashtag teamwork.
Oh, that's good to know. Next is Tarindo.
Yeah, I'm Tarindo Aberatna. I am the senior program officer for campaign and advocacy in ANFREL. Basically, do the Arana earlier said no, like he is more on the deploying election observers whenever we have election observer missions. But after we conduct observation missions, and then even sometimes before having observation missions, we do a lot of advocacy for the electoral reforms. So we work with the regional organizations, we work with the national organizations, citizen election observer groups, other partners. So that's basically what I mostly do, like talking to different people, building networks, building trust. So yeah, that's what I do. um, when it comes to the hashtag, I would say, considering like for last few years for my work, it's never boring.
Mm.
Because it's in the advocacy work, especially for last couple of years, when we work with the countries like with like very restrictive environment, we've been working with a lot with those countries. For example, Bangladesh. Now there is a new opening, and then Myanmar, Cambodia, and then the other countries in the region also, where like it's very, things are changing very fast, and then it's not easy to work with then it's, you also don't see the improvement very fast. So always there is a new challenge, so it's not boring. And I remember the last time when we were having uh, the election observation mission in Philippines. Also, I was able to go to BAM, right? Very
Yes.
interesting place. So yeah, it's never boring.
Hashtag never boring. Um, Afsana joined briefly, but she left. I don't know. Maybe because of internet connection. But Afsana, if you are watching, I hope you join us again. Just to be fair, I'll answer my own question. I won't introduce myself because I introduce myself every time I open the show. But for me, I guess just to describe a part of the work, I'd say my hashtag would be hashtag fun. If you've noticed the reels that we've been uploading to promote each episode of the show, I've considered it as like a sandbox where we experiment on things because it's hard to compete with attention. It's hard to get attention online, especially for the work that we do because we're quite serious. And as somebody who communicates the work, I guess I have some leeway to have some fun. So at least I get to do that, and at the same time get to do the serious work as well. But for me, it's hashtag fun because the reels, the short reels, jumping, appearing in phones and all that, all the tricks for social media contents. It's fun so far. So yes, moving on to my next question. This is for the three of you. No? You have observed quite a number of elections with ANFREL. I just wanted to ask, what is an encounter, a person, or probably an event during your deployment as an election observer that has shocked you the most and why? Like what's something that is very remarkable, can be positive or negative as well. So who would like to go first?
I think we can
What?
again go with A.
Eh?
I'm still thinking. I'm still thinking.
Okay, just to be fair to Ayan, I'll
This,
answer because I prepared an answer for this one. I always go back to that's a particular moment in observing elections for me that I still remember up to this day is my first deployment in 2019 when I joined ANFREL. That was the 2019 Sri Lankan presidential election. And as you know, as we observe elections, we interview people. We, of course, monitor different preparations and processes related to elections. But there's this particular government official who we talked to. I was assigned in Ratnapura then. So obviously, the first things that you do when you're deployed is to talk to government officials, to the police, and ask them about preparations and the environment and in the particular area where you're deployed. So this one particular, I think she's the admin secretary, administration secretary in Ratnapura, and I was asking her about preparations for the elections there. And we ended up talking about her personal life. She said she has been with government. She has been in government service for 27 years. She initially was working in GAL, but she was assigned to Ratnapura. So that means sacrificing. She was away from family, but still she was working really hard, and the family was very supportive of her. And then when I asked her about how the elections are going on in the place, she just laughed. We both laughed because we understand, of course, that the work for people who prepare for elections are quite hard. So it was very inspiring because for me, I value the work of government officials, particularly career government civil servants, because they're the backbone of every operation, not just in government but also in elections. And these are often not celebrated enough. But then, of course, the work that they do are valuable. So to me, being able to engage with people like that, it's quite inspiring and it reminds you of why you do the work that you do. So that's for me what has been so far striking during my deployment. Who would like to go next?
I
Ayan.
can,
okay.
yes, and
Um, I wouldn't necessarily call it a shocking experience,
Mm-hmm.
but it was definitely memorable in the sense that um, it left me a bit tensed,
Mm-hmm.
and that is when. So this was during our deployment in Sri Lanka to observe the parliamentary elections um, in 2024, and I was in Batticaloa, and we were going to the Batty Press Club, to interview one of the senior journalists there regarding the electoral process, regarding what he has experienced during this process, and so on and so forth. So, one of my questions to him that I was preparing to ask was regarding electoral violences in that specific area committed by a specific party that I'm not going to name. Um, and his response to it, if he found any evidence, if he had heard of such violence situations, and so on and so forth. But when I had arrived there, I was notified that there was already a meeting that's going on in the press club, so I wasn't allowed in. But as soon as the meeting was over, the person who walked out of the meeting room was one of the leaders of the party that was accused of committing the violence. And it so what I had heard about the violence, it sounded pretty scary to me, pretty risky. So when he had walked out, and the fact that I had prepared to ask such questions to the journalist there. So the moment I saw the one of the leaders of the party who was accused of carrying out these atrocities, I was kind of afraid. So I was just there. I was completely blank because in my head I was like, okay, so your party was accused of doing these things. I wonder what you had told during the Battery during the conference that you had at the Battery Press Club, and I was sort of asking myself if I should be asking these questions to the journalists there at that moment then and then just after this meeting concluded, because I wonder how the journalists would be answering those questions, or if the person if this leader would be sort of lingering around the area, sort of trying to eavesdrop into what we were talking about. I was afraid as to what he would have done uh, after hearing these questions being asked and the answers that were being said. So that sort of freaked me out for a very brief moment. But the leader was the one of the leader who was there. He was very nice. He was very welcoming. He was very open. We didn't really ask him anything regarding the violences then and there at that specific time. We were deliberating whether we should, my interpreter and I. But before we even got to that point, he mentioned the events himself, and he said they were all rumors. None of that happened. He made a pretty light deal out of the entire thing, and he took photos with us, took our names, and then he had just left. So that was a brief tense situation that I had experienced during my deployment in the presidential election in Sri Lanka.
These are both stories from Sri Lanka, no? Who would like to go first? Maybe a different country if you have. But Sri Lankan stories are also welcome very much.
Okay, I'll bring from somewhere else then. So this was my, I think, the second election observation mission. It was in Myanmar by election. And then I think this is one of the most interesting election observation mission, I would say, because I was deployed in a very rural, remote place in Myanmar, in Chin Hills, close to the Indian border, that you have to take a small flight for like, I think, 1.5 hours, and then from there take a car, like with all the muddy roads for around like 12 hours to get there. So it was a like the place called Tantalang. I spent in that particular town for around 10 days, talking to different stakeholders. And then it was amazing, as earlier John also mentioned, like especially the election officials, like how they organize election in such remote areas. And then also the other stakeholders. No, it's not the setup that we see every day when we go to the elections. They have, if you want to, for example, if you want to go from campaigning, so the one village to another village, you have to go from one hill to another hill, you know. So it's quite it's not easy. But one thing amazed, on the election day, by the time of like, let's say, I think 4 o'clock, until 4 o'clock, the election time, and the 4 p.m. So by the time of 1 or 2, like in most of the election, the polling stations, the more than 80% people already voted, because it's a very small, like it's a very small community, and then everyone knows to other. If somebody knows, like, oh, this person, really did not go to vote, like they will go and, like, inform these people, just go and vote,
Yes.
something like that. So it was really a different experience. And then a couple of years ago, after the coup, there was a small town, actually, the Tantalan. It's not a very big city or something like that. After the coup, when the conflict started, I've seen some of the videos, the airstrikes in this particular small town. Now this town is like in ruins. So I had such a nice memories in this particular town. And then now you look back, like how these people live, it's really heartbreaking. And another thing what happened, like, I think 2 to 3 years after, when we come back, I also heard my interpreter, he passed away. He
Oh
was the guy,
no.
like, was with me for all the time. um, yeah, I mean, it's the mixed feeling I have about this particular place and then particular
Yes.
mission. It was very interesting, inspiring to see how people come together, organize elections. But like after 5 years back, when you looked at, like, it's really heartbreaking what's happening there. So yeah, that's
Arindu, that's so
what.
sad. Rana, maybe you have what's your story?
Yes, John. I think uh, before I begin, our audiences they should also know that John already had the script. He had all the questions. He had all the answers, and this is kind of impromptu to all of us. And I'll first like to mention that each election is very different from the other.
Yes.
Each country has a very unique setup, and we get to experience something very different,
Yes.
from one mission to the next mission. And nothing shocking so far, thankfully. I think I've been fortunate with regard to that, but lots of interesting experiences. Obviously, like I mentioned, that each election and each country's framework is quite different. So some countries are very welcoming
Yes.
when it comes to election observers, and they also have proper legal framework as well to accommodate us, accommodate the deployment and everything. They have all the rules and regulations at place, and some country they do not have the legal framework at place for the international observers, but the election commission is quite well equipped and trained, and they know how to uh, help us, like throughout the process, because we have to work in close collaboration with the election commissions of these countries, because they are the ones who accredit us, they give us the accreditation. So I think it's quite important, and they also know that they are also being observed in the process, right? So just to mention this to our audiences, that each experience is quite different. But talking about like some of the incidences, I would like to start because I have a couple of incidences to share. I'll be very brief,
Cool.
but I'll like to start with Indonesia. That was actually my first mission back in January 2024, where I joined as an electoral analyst with ANFREL. And again, it was quite nice. I really wanted to go and explore non-urban or a rural or a remote location to also understand the differences. And it was overwhelming for me to see, that how to these remote islands, the entire ballot boxes and everything, they come on boats early morning. Like the entire process is like quite in contrast with the urban cities, where we see the electoral process relatively smoother. and well organized, but things can really get messy, delayed, and at these remote places, or especially the places which have some kind of, disturbance or insurgency history or some kind of conflict going on. And for this, Ayan have already shared an interesting story from Sri Lanka. I was actually hoping that Tharindu will bring something from BAM, because BAM is the region where we are going to have the election observation mission very soon in Philippines. And he was deployed in the BAM region, which is again, it has a history of conflict, and we know that the place is going through transition. So I thought he was going to come with something, BAM specific, but maybe next time, Tharindu, you can add something to your story. So there we realized that, in Indonesia, it, firstly, it's the biggest election in the sense that it's the biggest one-day election, because it's the population of more than 30 crores, and the entire population goes into elections on one day itself. So it's like not even one day; it's only 6 hours election from early morning 7 to 1 p.m. And it was absolutely overwhelming to see the dedication of, these polling officials. Most of them were also the volunteers from the general public, and they were being very sweet like throughout, because they know that, that we are also there and we also have to be there for really long time. So they shared their portion of snacks with us, their portion of beverages with us, which was very kind. We respectfully, we did not accept that, because we also understand that we are there as an independent organization, as independent observers. So I and like, our team don't generally accept any kind of these things, but it was really sweet that, they were ready to divide their own food for us. And we know the value of food, especially at this time when you hardly have anything, because they were on duty for like more than 24 hours. So one is this, that it was overwhelming to see the work of EMB and the volunteer support which was received by them. So again, it's an excellent example. And then I would want to quote, this woman in Sri Lanka we came across, and most of our audiences will already be familiar with, what Sri Lanka has gone through since last few years. So it was like political and economic turmoil, and we are so happy to say to see their growth so far and how they have come back really strong. So I came across this woman. Firstly, she was not very receiving, she was not very welcoming, and she just wanted to shoo me away. So I realized that it's very, very important for an observer to properly introduce themselves to the voter. And voters have always been my favorite, because I understand that they are the ones who are the pillars of the democracy. They are the ones who are at the receiving end of this entire democracy. So it's always interesting to, interview them, both like, the focus group discussions or the small group discussions or the individual face-to-face discussions. So she was a librarian. It was a public library around 200 years old. So initially she was not welcoming at all, but when I told her that this is why I am here in Sri Lanka, she was so happy to know that. She's like, my country really needs you. And she just sat with me and she went on and on that, how Sri Lanka was in mess, and how, things really need to improve, and we really, really want that the entire electoral process this time is free, fair, credible, and we have full faith in, like, all the institutions, all the departments, all the organizations. But with you on the ground, so we are like, double sure that everything is going to be all right. And we sincerely hope that, that my country is soon going to be back on the development road or the economic recovery road, and also the political stability road. So it was overwhelming to, listen to these stories. So I think for me this is one of the takeaways, and it always stays with me whenever I move to the next country's election, because I know how much important these elections are for the people,
Yes, that's true.
right?
Yes. So Afsana is here right now. I will ask you the first question to everyone. I did not introduce everyone, but I will let you introduce yourself by telling us your name, of course, your designation at ANFREL, and answering a particular question, which is if you have a hashtag to describe your work with ANFREL, what would it be and why? Afsana. Oh, we cannot hear you. Hello. Still cannot hear you. No. Maybe I would advise to leave and then rejoin again. Sometimes that works. Because actually the next question is for Afsana because I'm not sure if because as a new staff she hasn't observed elections yet with ANFREL. So my question was also just related to her key takeaway from the work at ANFREL so far. And as I said, this is cheesy, no. How that inspires or drives her in her personal or professional life. But let's see if Afsana can fix her audio. But just to move on to my next question, no. We of course know the value of engagement. This is related to what you said, no, Rana. The value of engagement and participation in elections and democratic processes of people for it to be sustainable, for democracy to be sustainable. And we've been talking about it in different ways through our programs. I'm sure you're also aware of some sectors and stakeholders who have not seen democracy working for them in certain ways. Personally, I've had discussions with friends and some peers about disillusionment about elections. Sometimes because you can't blame them because you see the flaws in the process. Sometimes you also see people who try to sway results, and sometimes there are also dissatisfaction with the results of the elections. No, but on the other side of it, from your experience talking to people, particularly those who you have talked to and probably listened to in programs that you handle, why do you think people continue to believe that democracy and elections are sound and meaningful systems and processes? Have you had um like positive experience about that before you can think about it as Afsana joins us who will answer my first question to her. Hi Afsana. We still cannot hear you, unfortunately. Are you using a headphone? Maybe try not using the headphone. Would that work? Straight from your phone? We still cannot hear you. No. Oh no, this is not working. We need to hear Afsana. This episode cannot end without us hearing Afsana. So going back to my question.
Can you take Afsana on like audio call maybe? Uh,
No, I actually tried setting up an audio call earlier, but the program doesn't work. I don't know why. But yes. This is the only way she needs to join
Maybe
through the link.
you can give a video call to Afsana using your phone and then put it on the screen.
How does that work? That would echo. Afsa, do you know my number, Afsan? If you're watching this, call me. Where's my phone? Call me so that we can do that in case.
I can call her if
Maybe,
you want
please
to do in
do.
that way.
Yes. What?
All right, go ahead. I'll figure it out.
Yes, because we've had Ian first before. Maybe we can have Rana first this time.
I just finished
No.
and I gave a
Well,
very long answer.
that's why you would be the next one again. Or Ian, would you like to take the question?
So the question is more about our experience in when we are discussing with various stakeholders that we've
Yes.
spoken with so far.
Yes.
Their response to elections, the electoral process, and democracy bringing forth some positive change.
Yes. Probably more of why do they still believe in democracy and elections?
Okay. So based on the stakeholders I've personally spoken with so far, especially the ones that we've spoken with in Bangladesh, given the fact that now is a transitionary period in Bangladesh's democracy. Um, we're having the elections next year in February, probably around the first or second week,
Mm.
just after a massive student people's uprising on
Yes.
in July 2024. So I, based on my interactions with these stakeholders, I believe that they still think at this point in time, democracy, like they still believe in the electoral process and democracy because mainly because of the fact that it's a transitionary period, like
Yes.
from a Bangladeshi context in this particular time and space. That it's a transitionary period right now, so
Mm.
there's a lot of hope banking on the fact that perhaps because this is going to be a historical election in Bangladesh, there might be some genuine positive change brought forth
Mm.
via the elections, which
Yes.
is something that wasn't visible at all for the past 15 plus years.
Mm.
But now, because of this time that we are in, maybe there is going to be some, like, there's always that maybe. This is something that we've heard many
Yes.
stakeholders say time and time again
Mm.
in the past few months, that maybe there is finally going to be something that would be um, worth talking about, worth sharing, that would benefit not just one specific part of the community, but the community in as a whole. But it's also sort of parallel to what they also say regarding how it's a sort of pattern in Bangladesh, at least in Bangladesh, where it's just maybe a year's worth of things to sort of be positive about, but then from the second year onwards, if the government is still there at that point in time, that just after the beginning of the first year, things start to go downhill, where the government sort of gets really relaxed. They continue to do the sort of things that the previous government was known to do,
Mm.
um, which was very detrimental to the society and all the community in the society as well. So, but they still have hope. They still bank on the fact that because this is going to be a historical election,
Mm.
maybe now is the time for something positive to actually happen, to actually come to fruition, to actually show itself. So this is the sort of narrative that we've been getting um, for the past few months, ever since the interim government came to power. This is also the sort of hope they had with the interim government itself. While there have been a lot of positive changes, the interim government was still unable to address a plethora of other very monumental issues that they should have
Mm.
tackled,
Mm.
or they should have at least tried to tackle. But it's due to a lot of reasons, a lot of factors, that they were unable to sort of get to the point where they would be able to tackle that head on and see positive results. But yeah, it's a lot of hope just because it's a transitionary period.
Yes.
We believe that there would probably at least be some things to be very happy about following the next elections. Uh, for how long, we don't really know yet, but definitely something to talk about to benefit the society as a whole.
Mm. Um, Afsana, can I hope your mic works this time. Can you try? Hello.
Hello, am I audible?
Hi.
Finally.
Finally. Yes. So I'll go back to my first question because we haven't introduced you yet before we proceed to Rana and Tarindu for the other question that I gave them. Can you please introduce yourself, your designation at ANFREL, and answer the question, if you have a hashtag to describe your work with ANFREL, what would it be and why?
Am I part of the broadcast? Am I visible? Because I cannot see myself in the live stream.
Um, you are in the live stream, but your video is not moving, but we can hear you.
Okay, so just go with it. First of all, sorry for the technical difficulties. I've been trying to join for more than half hour. So I'm Afsanana Jamie, the program associate for Bangladesh, ANFREL's Bangladesh Election and Democracy Program. And if I have to describe me working for ANFREL in one hashtag, it should be democratization in Bangladesh, because there is an echo. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so democratization, because I think election observation is very important in the perspective of Bangladesh, in the sense that there have been no viable election observation in the past 15 or more years in Bangladesh, as there was the fall of democracy in the early. So me working for ANFREL would be me doing a meaningful or impactful work in increasing the democratic environment or facilitating it in Bangladesh.
Okay, that was not very clear from my end. I'm sorry. Um, but in the interest of time, we will move forward. I will just repeat the question so that you can also answer. My question was, my last question was, because you've been engaging with different stakeholders, I know in the Bangladesh program, no? I guess what have you heard from people in terms of why they still believe or why they have a renewed belief, I hope, in Bangladesh, in elections and democracy? But we will give Rana or Tarindo if they want to answer first, if they have an answer for that question now, so that we can give Afsana time to think about it.
Yeah, let me go. It's yes, it's no. Whenever we go for the observation or like other programs, we talk to the people, and then they, yeah, we always see there is a hope. Um, but there's also a trend we see, right? Like the people
Mm,
are less believing in this democracy or the elections as well, because some people also see, like it's not working, it's not making their lives better,
mm,
or the politicians or the people who elected are not really listen to their voices, something like that. So that's kind of a mix, I think, what we been hearing from different people. But I think most of the countries, for example, Sri Lanka that we were talking about, we also I observed in Myanmar, for example, like this is a particular transition period. So we see a
mhm,
lot of hope, because it's also sometimes that's something that they are struggling for, that they don't have it. So they are struggling with a lot of hopes. But another time also, that also has become part of their culture as well, so elections, democracy, for example, in Sri Lanka, if you and Indonesia are like the countries like that have had elections for some time, so that the people always think that they can bring a new government or a new politicians, new parliament, so that they will listen to it. So that's part of the thing, like it's just become the culture, and then it has become the way that the people demand for their different needs, right? um yeah, I mean, it it is very inspiring most of the times to hear the people believe in this.
mhm,
People, the places like Myanmar, people were fighting. Right now people are fighting for it. There, it's always people try to find a way to express themselves. Like that's also are part of the nature of human beings. I think like we always look for the the freedom, and then we always want to express ourselves, we always want to be with the other people, we always would like to gather and then do things together.
Yeah.
So it's all of our, I think, the mix of culture, mix of human nature, and everything at the end of the day with lot becomes with lot of hopes for a betterment of everyone's life.
Okay. Rana.
Yes. Thank you, John. I think that's a very interesting and important question. I would just like to slightly differ from my colleagues. We know that there are all kinds of stakeholders, and all people are not the same. So my question also goes to the audience: if they can just think, or they can just ponder about it, a little deeper, that who do you think would be more worried if democracy is under threat? Like, which particular sector will be more worried, or which particular sector will be more demanding, when it comes to their freedom or rights? So the answer is that obviously it's the one which has been historically marginalized,
Yes.
right? Because of several reasons. So I would say this attitude also differs, like, who exactly are we talking to? If we are talking to, for instance, somebody from a very privileged, economically and politically or socially privileged background, then the person might not bother that much about the democracy, even though it is also important for them. But democracy as a concept, again, that is something which appeals to that person very differently. But this definitely hits hard when you talk to the people who have been systematically marginalized, and they are at the so-called lower end of the social and economic hierarchy and of this spectrum in the society. And for them, and I would also like to mention about these groups, and it also differs from place to place. It obviously, women are like one of the most common groups in most of the places where we feel that, you know they are always more likely to support, or value democracy, because we know that socially, historically, and systematically, their voices are not being heard. And even politically, that we are also aware that they also got the suffrage right really late compared to men, and the representation globally among politicians is still very poor, right? So I would say that that is again one of the groups which are obviously more likely to kind of agree with this idea that democracy is something which is very important, and they'll always be eager to protect it.
Yes.
And other than that, there are so many other vulnerable communities. It can be religious minority, or if you talk about a place like India or even Sri Lanka, it can be minority based on the basis of caste. It can be socially marginalized group as well. It can be persons with disabilities or gender minorities. So they kind of look at this idea very differently. And I, like, before I end this, I would also like to quote this, famous slogan from the second wave feminist movement in late 1960s, which said that the personal is political, right? So it means that, it rejects the notion that, both the private life and the public life or the political life are separate. They are deeply interconnected,
Yes.
right? So whatever happens politically, someday or the other, it will come to you, it is going to affect you.
Yes.
And today, wherever there are threats to democracy, like, the privileged or the privileged class or economically advantaged groups, they might not kind of realize it today, but eventually it is also going to affect them. So
Yes.
we know that, the personal life and the politics of the country cannot really be separated, and they are deeply interconnected. So I think that's it from my side.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very good. It's also actually very correct. No, it's a good insight there. Afsana, I hope we've given you time to reflect on the question. Um, Yes. Hello? We lost your audio again, but you're moving.
Hello.
Yes, there you go.
Okay. So I'll continue from what Tharinder said.
Uh-huh.
As my experience from working in ANFREL, the situation in Bangladesh is kind of similar to what happened in Sri Lanka some years ago. So people here are really hopeful that there would be proper democracy, a proper electoral system, and democratization. But there are lots of chaos. Everyone is trying in their own way to bring that change, the total overhaul of the system. But along with hope, I see lots of difficulties for Bangladesh in the future. It's not going to be easy to bring that change. And as Rana said, the marginalized community in Bangladesh, they are kind of what he has described. They're trying to be part of the process, but the process, the system is built in such manner that they are lacking the access to be part of the democratic process in Bangladesh. If we talk about the people with disabilities, the indigenous community, women and gender diverse communities, they are often not part of the democratic system or electoral process in Bangladesh. There are
Mhm.
lack of access to voting and difficulties to be a part. And in Bangladesh, youth now have a huge stake, which was not the case before the revolution. After the revolution, youth has a voice, and there are diversion amongst youth too. There are new political parties. So if we consider the overall situation of Bangladesh and the democracy, I think we will get a sense of what it's going to be in our next election, which we are hoping that will be held in February. So if we talk about the democracy in Bangladesh, people are in general, if I term it, people are hopeful that there would be democracy and we would be able to overhaul the whole political system and
Mhm.
with substantial institutional reforms and establish democracy, which was missing
Mhm.
for the first 15 or 16 years.
Okay. Let me also ask you, Afsana, the question that I was supposed to ask you. I asked the boys earlier about their deployment experience, but we haven't deployed you yet in any election when you have joined ANFREL. So my question is related to the question, but more on what has been your takeaway from your work at ANFREL that inspires or drives you in your personal or professional life. If you can
So
please.
I have been working with ANFREL for more than 5 months, and
Mm-hmm.
my main work has been revolving talking to the various stakeholders in Bangladesh who are related to election and the electoral process. So I have met the persons from the institutions, the Bangladesh Election Commission, head of the reform commissions. We have met as ANFREL Bangladesh team. And our interview also included different CSOs, organization working with human rights, and traditional election observer group. So, due to if I talk about my very limited experience, as I have not been deployed anywhere to observe the election, uh, if I just say from my experience is that again, it's just all I can describe Bangladesh situation right now, that it's kind of a mess and a chaos, but we see hope.
Yeah.
I think that
Mm-hmm.
can be the end line. So from my meeting with all the stakeholders and political parties, some political parties want election as soon as possible. Some are a bit skeptical, and like there are lots of debate going on regarding whether the constitution should be repealed, whether it should be in place. So one of my takeaways from the present situation in Bangladesh is there is lack of trust among the stakeholders, be it
Mm-hmm.
political parties, the CSOs. No one trusts another stakeholder to do the right thing, or and kind of everyone's interest is affiliated to what's happening right now. There is lots of partisanship among CSOs.
Mm-hmm.
So one of my main takeaway would be that there is no trust, but but there is efforts. Whether it's collective or not, that's we have to look upon that. The effort that the stakeholders are putting, is it collective, and is it being put in the right place? Is because we have election in 6 months, right? And if you talk about reforms, there are yet substantial reforms to be seen. That's, I think, my personal opinion. So one of my, like, some of my takeaways would be there is lack of trust, and everyone is trying to do the right thing, but only the time will say if we are being able to implement the process and the right things, and to achieve the maximum best result and have a free and fair election in Bangladesh.
Okay. I'm aware of time, no. I have an option to ask a final question or a game, but I will ask the final question
Okay.
instead. Uh, just related to what I've picked up from the discussions in the podcast, one key realization for me is that, of course, our freedoms are fought for. Our rights and freedoms are fought for. They're not given to us. They are fought for. They are continuously fought for. No. And we've seen in recent years, including in Bangladesh, um, movements that have pushed for reforms, that have led to potential reforms. No, and as you are now in a transition to hopefully realizing a more democratic society, we know that people sacrificed a lot, of course, in these things. But then you also have young people who have not had that much experience and want immediate change. I remember a discussion with one of the people we've engaged with in a previous observation. I said, it takes time and you can't necessarily have the things that you want right now. It's good that you engage, but then you have to do it constantly and that you have to, realize that it would take time. But that's just relating to that. My final question is, if you were to give an advice to young people who have engaged in protests, who have demanded change in their own countries, especially you guys, you, Afsana and Ayan, you're quite young, Maybe for you, it's more of like if you were to face yourself in the mirror. Maybe not for Rana and me because we're not that young anymore. But if you are to talk to young people, what can you say to them, to these young people about engaging and participating in elections and democracy? Who would like to go first? Ayan will go on.
Ayan, you could go first. It's okay.
You are muted. I will unmute you. Hello?
Sorry, I was muted. Maybe we could have Afsana go first
Oh,
because we weren't
sure.
we weren't able to hear her for quite some time because of her network issues.
Of
All
course.
right. All right. First of all, what I would like to advise the youth of Bangladesh is to have faith. Have faith that things are going to change. Sometimes I give this advice to my own self that Amy, have faith. We have struggled a lot to reach this situation that we are in right now in case of democracy. I have been personally part of the uprising. I have been on the street, so I know how hopeless it can get for us youth to see the present situation.
Yes.
Sometimes I say to my colleagues, I don't know, I constantly complain to him about the situation in Bangladesh. Then, where are we going? Where are we heading towards? But as you say, that it takes time. The changes to reflect in the system and the overall situation, it will take time to be visible, the changes that we're trying to bring, right? So one of my advice would be to keep faith and keep working on Bangladesh, not to lose hope, not to leave Bangladesh, not to just fly away. I think we can work on it, and gradually we can build a nation that we all have dreamed of. So that would be my advice: to have faith and to work on Bangladesh, not to give up.
Keep the faith alive, no? Faith, not no faith. Faith, yes, faith. Not FAT, faith,
Yeah,
yes.
faith.
Faith, yes. Keep the faith alive. That's nice to hear. Who would like to go next?
I could maybe go next.
Yes, go ahead.
So, just in context of the revolution that happened in Bangladesh, and the youth who were involved, one thing, actually not one thing, a few things that I would like to say is to not lose sight of the reason why the uprising had happened in the first place. Firstly, secondly, it is to not forget the spirit of the uprising, the spirit of the revolution, and to not sort of um, be on a tangent, or to not sort of stray away from the very ideology, from the very reason as to why the uprising had happened, because time and time again you see there being a massive uprising, but over time the reason behind why that uprising had happened, the spirit, the goal of that uprising, it sort of disappears, it sort of diffuses out, and it's no longer there. And then um, you have individuals who say that whatever they're claiming at that point in time, whatever they're demanding at that point in time, is part of the spirit of the revolution, but it's not. There is no connection. So my advice would be to not lose sight of what they had intended to do in the first place, the reason why the revolution had happened, the reason why there was a people's uprising, and to strive, to strive for a democratic future, to strive for a democratic transition. And finally, I would like to say and reiterate what Afsana had also mentioned, is to not lose faith. Because personally speaking, this was always something my father would tell me, because I would get very, very, very easily frustrated whenever I would not see any sort of change happening, because 15 plus years is a very long time, and we've been persecuted for around that time as well, if not longer. So it's you you don't see these things happening, you don't see these changes coming forward overnight. It's something that you have to fight for, it's something that you have to continue to fight for over months, years. And in Bangladesh's context, it was 15 plus years. But change will come. um, I still find myself sometimes a bit frustrated as to why it's not happening faster. But then I tell myself that it's a process, and as with processes, they take their own time. They have their own sort of pace. You can't rush it. Neither can you tell it to slow down. It will happen when it needs to. So, but to not lose faith at all in the system. Trust the system is what I would say. So, yeah, those are some of the advice that I would be giving to the youth.
Okay, Rana.
Yes. Firstly, John, I was not really happy with you calling me indirectly old, but I think this is this is also the time. And obviously, you subtly included yourself, both Shana and me. So only speak about yourself.
I
Rana,
included
you are young
myself.
as long as you are young from heart. We can leave John from that part. You can join our team.
But
We all are young.
To be honest with you, Afsana, I think it's the time that I finally accept the fact. Even the heart is getting old. But coming to this question again, this is something which should come from elderly, like youth to advice, right? So I would say that each generation, or like they have their own set of challenges. But one thing which is common is that need to keep yourself informed, to keep yourself well informed with what is going on. And obviously the modes of information, they also keep shifting from one generation to generation, the kind of access to information we have today. So again, this particular generation has another challenge, which are like one of the cons of having so many modes of communication, that there is also a continuous threat of misinformation, and it is something which has started affecting these elections, right? I think coming from Bangladesh, you already know the value of right information and the negatives of misinformation, how it can kind of sabotage the entire movement, right? So it's because in India, there were different narratives. In other countries, there were different narratives.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly it was everything like, about religious and about this group and that group. So there was so much which was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll time and again reiterate this, that it's not just important to inform yourself, but it's also important to understand these information tools, right? So it's and I won't say that you have to stick to the same tools that our generation or the generations earlier to that used,
Mm-hmm.
because each generation is special and they have their own challenges and they have their own ways to navigate these challenges. So kind of develop your own tools and try to keep yourself more informed, so that
Mm-hmm.
you know what's happening and you know how to react to it,
Yes.
right? And it's a constant thing.
Mm-hmm. Just to add on your, just to ride on your response, no. I agree. Of course, a lot of people will try to distract you and redirect your attention to the real issues, So I guess there has to be a focus, and you have to go back to your core. I agree with what Ayan has said, but that I would also quote one particular line from the Hunger Games. No, remember who the real enemy is, right?
Yes.
Yes. So you have
Yes.
to really be able to know your path and remember why you're doing what you're doing right now.
District 13.
Yes, District 13.
District 13.
Yes, remember who the real enemy is.
I don't remember that, John. I don't know
It's like
how.
this, the three
Uh,
fingers.
You're gonna
Right.
get flagged for throwing gang signs.
Oh no. Yes, so that is all the time that we have. Thank you for answering the questions. As I said, the challenge really is to answer the questions that you have not been given to. And you've done really an amazing job. Thank you for giving us the time this afternoon. Thank you to Tarindo as well. He has to leave earlier. But thank you, Rana. Thank you, Afsana. Thank you, Ayan, for giving us some time, some of your time, for answering the questions, for the reflections. They're really well appreciated.
can
Yes.
we
Thank you
have
so
the
much.
can we
Thank
have
you,
the
John.
pictures on that poster now?
Which one?
Question
Our
marks.
faces.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will update it when we upload this episode on Spotify and Apple Podcast. That's a slight promotion right there. But thank you. I will have to hide you from the stream for me to formally close the show.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
John.
For all your hard work and for this very creative posters and these short videos that you are coming with, the
For
stories.
sure.
We deeply appreciate that.
Thank
100%.
you.
Yes.
Oh, thank you,
Thank you,
thank you,
John.
thank you. And that has been the episode on reflections on democracy and elections in Asia. Get the latest news and updates about ANFREL programs and activities through Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and TikTok pages of ANFREL. You can also subscribe to our YouTube and WhatsApp channels. Please follow the Election Observer podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you for joining us again today. Thank you to my colleagues at ANFREL. It was a very short notice, but thank you for giving the time to participate in this afternoon's episode. I'm your host, John Antiquera. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.